You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. My name's Dave, and this is Fistful of Podcasts from FFOPradio.com. Back for another great week. Let me introduce you to my co-host for this episode. It's not What's His Face or Who's His Nuts or even the other guy by a chance. This week, we got PJ back on the show. I think, little to no introduction is needed for PJ if you're familiar with the show. PJ, welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me yet again.
So this is the first time on the podcast since the reboot, right?
Yes, I haven't been on the podcast in it was years, literally. Also
in studio, Krista's over there on the couch.
Hi, I'm trying to figure out this Podbean app.
Yeah. Well, we can't mention the live too much because I've got to edit all that out because this isn't staying up. Plus, I don't even know if it's capturing PJ.
Oh.
It's not capturing me?
I have no idea if it is or not. I think it's just pulling my mic. So this could be very confusing to literally everybody and anybody watching this, which is apparently too. Why are we even talking about this? I have to cut all this out. Anyway, guys. So PJ, welcome back to the show. We haven't seen you since that hilarious prank I pulled.
Yeah.
Yes. The one where I just happened to swiftly dip out.
Yeah. So, but we got a lot of intros on a lot of stories, but we did not get a lot of closure. Yeah. So, where do you want to start? Because I know we've got games we can talk about. I know we've got.
We gotta talk about beer because that's where it all fell apart.
That's what we were talking about last.
That's where our relationship all fell apart.
There were questions that I had, but I don't remember them now. But
I was gonna say, do you remember your questions? Feel free to ask.
Well, I remember. So for a jumping off point, the touchstone maybe that we can all remember is you get your face put on a beer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The beer is called There Goes the Neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, we heard a little bit about that. So to refresh my memory, it was just like a micro limited run.
Well, so the beer itself it's an imperial stout that was aged in bourbon barrels for the better part of 2 years. So
Okay.
it's there is only so much of it, and yeah, so it's a limited run. I mean, we probably had, I think, 15 barrels, which I'm not going to do the math at the top of my head, but it's a decent amount of beer. But I think we've sold about half of it so far, but we've been slowly bottling it because it's a very arduous process to bottle the entire beer. Because we can bottle I think we bottled in about 4 hours. We did about 130 bottles. Just to give you an example of how long it takes just for us to bottle it.
Oh yeah. Because I remember you telling that it takes a long ass time to bottle it.
Yeah.
So my next question is each of those barrels holds how much beer a piece? I can't remember.
So 1 barrel of beer is 31 gallons. That's the best reference I can give you.
Okay. And how many ounces in a gallon? Just, I'm not going to do the math. How many bottles of beer is 31 gallons?
So...
Well, come on, you do this all the time. You should know this on the top of your head.
I don't, though.
What the hell?
The sales guys know it better than I do. I don't even know. I couldn't tell you. A gallon, I think... One
Here, watch this. Krista, do some math. Do us up some math. We've got 12 ounces per bottle. You got 31 gallons. I don't know how many ounces are in a gallon. I'm sure that information is freely available on the internet. Get back to me when it is ready.
I think a gallon is...
There's 128 ounces in a gallon.
Oh, Captain Jimmy says that is 320.11 beers. That seems like a lot. Is that realistic?
I mean, so I just did
Should I be reacting to the chat?
So one gallon is 10 12-ounce beers.
Okay. So that pretty
But
much
beers
works
aren't
out.
always served in 10 gallons. So like that's what I mean. There's too many. Our cans are all 16 ounces, and then those bottles are 750 milliliters. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
It would be so much easier if we just weren't the one country in the world that decided that they want to be different from everybody else.
Yeah, but even if it were metric, whatever. I don't know. Even though we've had the imperial system for ever, essentially, anything over 6 feet like is a wash on me. Anything over like a gallon or two is a wash. Like you can say, oh, that's 31 gallons and we got 320 beers out of that whatever. But still, like I can't imagine with 320 beers, like if you just laid them out on the floor, like what that would look like. Just a lot. So just bam, that's all you need.
Today, like
Enough
for
to kill a man.
we canned 200 cases of beer, which is 6 4-packs, and those beers are 16 ounces per can. So it's 24 cans of 6 that are 16 ounces each, and we did 200 cases of that.
So the tall boy, what's the
deal?
impetus? What's the deal behind the tall boy? Like
the tall boy is just an old school thing, more or less. Like the tall boys are bigger than what we do. I think the tall boy is like 20 ounces. I want to say.
Oh, really? Maybe.
Yeah. It's at least 20 ounces. It might even be bigger than that.
Tall boy isn't 40. No, it's too big.
40 ounces.
Yeah, the 40s are different.
No,
I'm talking
40.
tall,
40s are different.
the taller your can or bottle of beer, like the more fucked up you are looking to get, essentially. Like not a lot of whatever. I'm sure there are people out there who do it because it's gauche and it's hipster or whatever, but not a lot of smaller beer companies would be like, hey, our beer is so good, we'll give you one giant ass can you can skulk around in a paper bag and drink it up. Like nobody, like no microbrew is gonna be like, this is how our beer should be enjoyed, warm out of a bag behind a Circle K.
It's crazy to me because that like tall boys get such a bad rap, because it's funny on Fridays at work we usually all drink tall boys. We go to the corner store and literally buy tall boys.
It's I'm sure, like I'm saying, there's a niche for it, but like you're doing it because you're like, now we've put so much, and that's the thing. I don't know what it is about humans, but our first instinct when we celebrate is to do something like self-harming. And for you, like working around craft beer, you're like, let's go drink some shit. I'm sure. But everybody does it. It's like, as soon as you say, woo, time to celebrate, it's like, yeah, you're drinking and eating to excess. Yep. And that's what the tall boy is for. And you're 40. Your 40 is for your professional. Your tall boy is for your rookie.
The 40s is for Edward 40 Hands.
I can't imagine how many people had to get a phone call like the next day where their son was found dead in a fraternity with 40s taped to his hands.
Oh, please. I watched, I don't know how many people do Edward 40 Hands.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying, college. Like, I'm sure you never witnessed a murder because you would have told me, not a murder, but a death by now. But I'm sure, like, alcohol poisoning is a real thing.
It is. That's what Four Loko happened.
Dozens of people across this nation right now are dying with 40s taped to their hands. And what an embarrassing way to go.
Yeah, so Captain Jimmy, Edward 40 Hands is you have, like David just said, 2 40s taped to your hands, and you cannot take them off until they are empty.
Yeah, it's like the lowest effort drinking game ever. Like, it's not even a game. It's just like, hey, you're someone we know, we're assholes, so now you get to drink this beer as it quickly gets warm and starts to taste.
That's why you need to drink it faster.
Yeah.
But that's just a punishment. Like, when I drink, I like to think of it as like a celebration. I don't like to think of it as like, I need to get as much booze into my body as possible so I can black out on
because
alarm.
we're responsible adults
Correct.
now, David.
When
I used to do the Edward 40 Hands, I was not a responsible adult.
Even when
I was a stupid young adult, whatever the hell you wanted to call me.
Even when I was stupid young, like, no way would I. Never. Like, I didn't. Whatever. Kids do what kids do. I was never one of those kids. That's why you do not see a headstone somewhere in Arizona with a picture of me with 40s taped to my hand, because that's what I would have requested with my dying breath.
My best friend went to college at UConn in Connecticut, which was a massive party school, and I cannot tell you how many times I was up there for months straight on every single weekend. So yeah, I did a lot of like stupid things.
UConn's crazy.
Yeah, well, whatever. So everybody's got drinking stories, and here's the thing: I don't know why personally. I could take or leave a drinking story because
I won the beer Olympics.
whatever. Like, but that's the thing. To me, a drinking story is a drinking story because we all know the effects of alcohol on the human body. It has been veritably tested. But I will never turn down a drug story because a drug will affect someone different every time, and not only affect the same person differently, but it'll affect other people wildly differently. It's just it's a different culture that I know will exist forever.
Mm-hmm.
It has existed forever, so it's going to exist forever.
Right, but it's so bland and boring to me. Alcoholic culture is so boring when drug culture is so much more interesting. Like, if you drink to yourself to death, you're just a sad loser. But if you, like, boil your brain on acid, you're, who is that famous writer? The crazy one. Fear and Loathing
Which
in
one?
Las Vegas. Gonzo. I can't think of his name. Johnny Depp played him in the movie.
Oh, it's
he was a super famous guy, PJ.
I don't know his name.
hold on.
I
Hunter Thompson.
yeah, Hunter S. Thompson. Jesus H. Christ. Hunter S. Thompson. Crazy guy. So yeah, that. I love a drug story because you do crazy things when you're on drugs. You do stupid and violent things when you're boozed up.
That's true. I've seen a lot of fights and irresponsible flamethrowing.
Yeah, it's also a social thing for humans too.
Yeah, I get that. Because, like, all of my good drinking stories aren't based on me drinking. Like, they're all, like, things I witnessed. Like, the cat fight that erupted instantaneously right beside me outside a bar.
I remember that.
And, you know, what was I doing? I was sitting there on the parking pylon being like, whoa, dudes, let's chill out, while these bitches were yanking clumps of hair out of each other's scalp.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's the thing. All your drunk stories end in something getting broken, or somebody got punched, or
Or the cops come and you have
the
to
cops come.
leave
And something. Yeah, like,
before you get caught.
drinking stories are always like, oh, yawn, you passed out and you threw up. Drug stories are like, oh man, I was sitting on a park bench when a bush turned into a swarm of goblins, and then they all start, whatever. So that's whatever. I understand the beer and the booze life, and I like the craft stuff too. They still got an interesting culture. However, drug culture always going to be more interesting.
But what if I told you there's another type of alcoholic beverage that I want to start making at home?
Like absinthe?
No, I want to make mead.
Oh.
Let me ask you this. What does it do to you that's special?
Mead? I just want to make it. Mead is pretty much like one of the oldest fermented beverages that humans have ever made. It intrigues me.
I mean, that's fine. Like, that's great. Like, don't get me wrong. The lineage of alcohol I find interesting. I just don't think the culture is very interesting. I think the fact that we somehow stumbled upon something, I feel like everything we find out as humans is just like completely accidental.
I always thought to myself, I'm like, somebody had sugar in water and left it out for days and then drank it and got drunk. And that is how we figured alcohol out.
Well, I think it probably goes before that, because I'm sure, maybe you aren't familiar with this documentary where it's like super old. I think it's called Animals Are People Too. And in that documentary, I'm sure it happens in others, that like there's a type of tree that drops this fruit that once it sits for a while starts to ferment and creates alcohol, and these monkeys get fucked up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, all it takes was like, if monkeys know to leave these fruits sit, if they want to have a fucking monkey party, it doesn't take much to take a hominid way above them to be like, oh, look, if I take this fruit, it must be the sugar. Like, obviously, like, humans have done nothing but immediately, because, like, obviously, first profession, prostitutes, so sex is always on the mind. And immediately after that, I feel like we were, like, asking monkeys how to make booze.
The crazy thing, though, is we've only known about yeast for, like, 200 years, 250 years. We've only known that yeast is what is actually doing the work. They didn't know what it was that was doing it. And they had no idea. And they were brewing beer, and they still had no idea.
Right. Well, that's
clue.
That's the same story told a zillion times. So like when this is completely unrelated, like alcohol wise, but theme wise, it's on point. So in like the medieval times, these people, the woad dyers, would dye blue cloth with this plant called woad, and they were basically figuring out how to oxidize the chemicals in this plant through a crazy, insane process. And even if you ask them how it happened, they didn't know. It's just something that some villager a long time ago finally fucking figured out, and somebody wrote it down.
Yeah.
But that's like the beer thing is like we accidentally find something, and like the first thing we do after we're like, all right, we'll just hang out. We'll have our blue cloth and we'll have our beer. Like chemistry is for suckers. This is magic for all I give a fuck.
Pretty much.
But that's it, man. Like before science, you would just stumble upon something and you'd look up toward the sky and be like, thanks, Zeus. Like big ups.
Yeah.
That like I can't imagine every culture around the world, the Mayan, the Incans, like the Chinese, the Japanese, when they all stumble upon booze, I want to see the first dude who gets fucked up, realizes that like he's got something here, but since it's the first time, has no idea how it happened because he went way overboard.
Yeah.
The first guy is always going to fuck it up. The second guy who watched him, though, he knows.
True.
Whenever people are like, how do you make beer? I was like, just put sugar in water and let it sit outside for a few days and you'll see it.
Yeah. And that's it though. Like, again, being in the trades, I knew tons of dudes who would make alcohol out of literally anything they could find in prison. I've personally received recipes for alcohol that you can make out of raisins, ketchup, orange slices, and the list goes on and on. Whatever you can find in prison, you can make into some sort of disgusting alcohol and pass an afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, it's all you need is sugar. You just need sugar and water.
Yeah, it's nuts. And it's the most insane thing. It's the most simplest process in the world, and it creates a poison.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
And we're like, oh man, we can't get enough of that shit. See, when we celebrate, we self-destruct. I don't know why in our head, like the party button must be so close to the self-destruct button that the person in charge of the buttons just goes apeshit and does a flat palm like, fuck it. I'm telling you, man. So, PJ, let us talk about your specialty for a bit. You've got, obviously, we brought it up on the live shows and stuff, but a website of various and sundry topics regarding video games. And so tell us, number one, what is new with that? And number two, I hear we've got some info about a new video game.
I mean, that's what's new about that. Like I've
it?
been well, no. Like, so recently me and my cohort, I should say.
Your cohort?
Whatever I want to call him. He got his hands on the newer system, so he's been playing some of the games that I haven't touched yet so that he can write on those, and I've been playing opposite games so that I can write on those. So like lately he's been he went through the new Spider-Man game, Miles Morales, and he's playing a game called Yakuza Like a Dragon.
I so want to play that. Oh my god.
Yakuza?
Yeah, Like a Dragon. I want to play that so bad.
He absolutely loves it. He's like, he keeps talking it up to me. But I was like, I was playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and then I moved on to play Cyberpunk, and then I was like, okay, after that I will go on to Yakuza. So like we both, I mean, it's just so like we can move over into Cyberpunk because that's pretty much what I've been playing a lot of recently. Mm-hmm. But like with Cyberpunk, I initially started and bought it for my PS4, which I have a PS4 Pro, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna play. That's the kind of game that I want to sit down and play on a controller and just like dive into like headfirst. It reminds
get immersed.
It reminds me of if you took like Skyrim and turned it into Cyberpunk. That's pretty much what Cyberpunk is. That's what it feels like. And I'm like a massive Skyrim nerd. So I was like, all right, this is perfect for me to just sit on. And then I started doing that. And I probably I think I have like 4.5 hours into the console version, and it is unplayable. Like, so the way that I want to play the game, I cannot play the game without the game dropping frames at an alarming rate and just like shit going wrong everywhere.
So
Like-
so what is the give me some for instances, like, because co-host of this show Andy has said, despite the bugs, it is an interesting world, which great. Like, despite the dog shit, that would have been an interesting steak, I would say.
So I will say this, and I wrote it in a gaming group that I'm part of, where I said, I feel bad because when I got it, I ended up buying Cyberpunk on PC because I had heard that the PC version was better. So
Sure.
I got it on PC, and I'm like 15 hours into the PC. And I had said, if this game had not had as many bugs as it had, and it was just pretty much unrunnable on consoles, this could have easily been considered a game of the year. Like, best game that has come out this year.
So since you're deep in the video game lore and culture, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Refresh my memory on the who released Cyberpunk?
So Cyberpunk is released by CD Projekt Red, which is the company that made the Witcher series.
Okay. So not a small company.
No, they are a massive company. Like the whole reason the Witcher series exists on Netflix is not because of the books; it's because of the popularity of the video games.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like everything The Witcher is, they can lay at the feet of the video games, obviously.
Yeah, and even though they're different, but like the popularity is what propelled it to be made.
But here's my question. Like, I realize that you want to meet deadlines and you've got shareholders to answer to and yada, 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 yada. And obviously hundreds, if not thousands of people knew they were shipping an unplayable product. So what do you think it is worth it as a company to release knowingly a borderline, offensive ripoff?
No, it's...
And just be like, we'll take a mulligan, or just like delay it and wait until you can do it right and take the heat later.
I think this is a consistent problem with the AAA studios, like all the big studios, where it has to do a lot with investors, and they have timelines. And this Cyberpunk was originally supposed to come out in September. We're in December, and that game is still unplayable.
Right, but that's
consoles.
the thing. Like, my question is, who is at the helm ready to throw that switch where they get, because it has to come down to one or a collection in a room of people. And when presented with all the data saying this is unplayable, if we release this, it'll be bad. And maybe next time we'll work on our timetables because, hey, P.S. we're professional game producers and maybe should have a handle on producing games.
It's so like this is the part where it's weird because they made the decision to release this game even though it was unplayable on consoles. What they did was super sketchy because usually
really?
No. Like, so what pretty much every game studio does is they release copies to all the games journalist websites so they can properly review it.
Fixed ones.
They give them multiple weeks to do it. So they usually give them copies 2 to 3 weeks in advance so that they can play through the game, enjoy it, like really dive into it. CD Projekt Red gave their copies of the games journalist 5 days ahead of time. So they only got it 5 days, which is incredibly short for the size of this game. The scale, like, well, it's way too short.
I've got a problematic question here, PJ.
Yes.
So, the aforementioned group of assholes who were like, ship it even though it's broken, we don't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they can only do that because on the other side of the wall, there is a slavering group of fanboys throwing their money as hard as they can over that wall. So,
yeah,
everybody loves to be like, oh, the gaming industry is like, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. Power is only given to the people you give it to. And since everybody gets to bend over and pay $120 for a digital version of something, cool, and there's no resale value, and if they release it a year from now for $20 and throw in everything you paid $400 extra for, like,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. Like, the games industry, everybody wants to point at it because all the gaming media related stuff I sort of do get is basically like Ubisoft is doing these bad things or this company's doing these bad things and grind and this and that and the other. And I get that. But if we didn't like let it happen, like if we could control ourselves and not pre-order everything that we think, and in an age when digital copies exist, what does a pre-order do? What's scarcity anymore?
I mean, nowadays all they do with the pre-orders is they just say, we'll give you this if you pre-order it. Like,
Exactly. But then what? So they're just basically saying, hey, when we give you the thing you're already paying for that is months, years, or whatever ahead, you can wait, but thanks for the money now. When we do give you the thing that you're paying for now that we'll give you later we'll also give you a little bit more of the thing that, remember, you're giving us money for now that you'll get way later. Maybe never. Thank you, Kickstarter.
I was going to say, I'd like to point out that in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the best mission that I have played in the game was a mission I got for pre-ordering the game. If I hadn't pre-ordered the game, I wouldn't have gotten that mission. And I'm like, that sucks. I'm like, that sucks for all the people who don't get to see that.
Yeah,
like,
guess what? Content cut out of games to hornswoggle you into buying something that may or may not suck is a shitty game practice. And every time I point this out, the go-to argument is, oh, Dave doesn't have a childhood. He doesn't like video games. I love video games. Full disclosure, I love video games. What I hate is being ripped off. I hate that. And I also hate being sold the same video game over and over again and being told it's something different.
I hate pre-orders. And the reason I've hated them since they pretty much existed.
Since physical
Because
media.
Because I literally used to work at a EB Games back in the day, and they used to force us to pre-order, and I'm like, why? Why do you guys want us to pre-order so much? Like, what does it matter to you? They're like,
they were
it's
instilling
guaranteed.
a practice, though, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, it's guaranteeing sales and stuff. I'm like, these people
Exactly.
are going to line up outside this place for this game anyway.
Just
They
think of it like this, PJ. Oh, expand your mind beyond video games. What product do you buy sight unseen, no test drive, no touch, no feel, no nothing, except for what has been carefully curated for you? What other place in your life do you do that? Nowhere?
I don't know.
I'll fill in the blank. Nowhere. You wouldn't buy a car after watching a 13-minute YouTube clip, would you?
No.
You wouldn't buy a car watching some IRL gameplay footage of someone behind the wheel.
You could
No.
buy a pizza by
gonna
seeing
say-
a commercial on TV.
But you know what a pizza is.
And for digital games on Steam, they actually have a decent practice with the fact that you can refund a game as long as you have not played it more than 2 hours. So if
Right.
you're playing a game an hour and a half and you're like, this is not what I want, refund. No questions asked.
Right. There are exceptions that prove the rule. I'm just talking about, and I can't really point a finger at Steam more or less because they're just like, whatever, we don't give a fuck. We've got all your money, and they don't care, and rightfully so. They've got all our money.
Yeah.
But at least there, an indie developer can thrive if the talent is there. With the AAA, it's basically like you're basically like a hog. They say, well, give us all your money and that's cool. Or you're not a hog because you slaughter those and they die. You're a cow. You're getting milked every fucking year because they say, oh boy, here's a new big thing. Look, Keanu Reeves is going to tell you that you're beautiful and now you'll give us $80 fucking dollars.
Yeah.
And then when I can't imagine, because like, if you get, again, since this doesn't happen literally anywhere else in nature, I can't point to something and be like, don't you hate it when you go to buy a car, you don't get to get into the driver's seat until you sign the contract and it falls apart? That never happens. But video games have taught us to just eat shit, and our complaints can go in the suggestion box that's cleverly hidden inside a toilet.
Yeah. And I think it has a lot to do with like, most of the people who buy games don't pay attention to games media, and I think that's more or less a problem because they're not like, the media is trying to point out all these issues, but even media will say like the vast majority of the people who are going to go buy this game aren't reading a damn thing that we're saying. So
right, and also I feel like you guys, everyone, I think in general, is behind the 8 ball, especially this year. Not to date the show, however, like I think everybody's behind the 8 ball because it is impossible to spread your attention in every direction all the time. And with a year like we've had, where everybody's jaws are constantly rug burned on the bottom as like they hit the floor and we drag them across the carpet as more like spine tingling news hits the TV. Like it's hard to point to something and be like, here's a problem, when everyone's like, yeah, but we've got real problems over here.
Yeah.
And so like everything, not only like the games industry, obviously, like all the employees and the business dealings, but like every splinter, like social group is just like, we'll deal with you later. Like we've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
So it's a rough year.
It's been a rough year. And that's why like I've tried to give the benefit of the doubt to a lot of these companies because they're all doing this work from home. So like,
right.
And they weren't doing that before at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like none of these game companies did work from home previously.
You won't ever, I shouldn't say ever, but your chances of losing something on an indie developer is a lot less than like a AAA, because an indie developer, you know, even if you get hornswoggled into somebody who sucks and they never, you know, have a finished product, you know, you're supporting someone who doesn't have backing and will not only deliver a shitty product to your face, but be like, you're welcome. Because like that's the great thing about Steam is like there are games out there that look rather polished, professional, and it was made by between 1 and 10 people.
Yeah, there's a lot.
They deserve every penny of your money.
I advocated highly for, there was they have like the quote unquote official game awards every year, and one of the games that was up for game of the year is made by an indie company. And
Hades?
Yeah, and I was just like, I'm like, Hades should win this. I'm like, I was like, I don't care. Like, all these other games that are up there are great. I'm like, but Hades is made by a company who's made 4 games. Every game they have made is great, but Hades is exponentially great. So, like, it was just, I was so... I was, when I saw them and I was like, when they're like, oh, Last of Us 2 won. I was like, of course it did, because Last of Us 1 won, and it would be weird if Last of Us 2 didn't win. And I'm like,
but that's what you lose when you succumb to blockbusters. When, you know, when Jaws turned movie theaters from like art house fixtures in towns to where you spend every weekend, it was like, dunzo. So that's what's going on with video games now. We have this huge split where these huge studios, you've got your Marvel equivalent, you got your Disney equivalent in the video game world, your Ubisoft, your Rockstar, your whatever, pumping out these mega multi-million-dollar, like $500 million to produce a game, GAME, a game that can be quantified, lost, and or won. A game, my friend, a game. $500 million they'll throw into it.
The argument for people who are like, oh, The Last of Us 2 did things that games have never done. I'm like, but movies have done them for ages. Right. So nothing that game has done is original. It's just doing things that movies did a long time ago, and they're just now catching up to it. So why does it win? Why does it get brownie points because it's a game? Like,
thus, you've led into my point. Like the video games industry has now become a huge blockbuster where they have to appeal to everybody. Like now, just look at the huge explosion of like movie style video games, or any of the Uncharted series, the Assassin's Creed series. Like they're these huge blockbuster, mega, like billionaire games.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing every time is what I'm getting at. Whereas if you look at Steam and all the little indie developers, they are exploring interesting new mechanics. They're interesting game, concepts. I mean, there's a million different weird and obscure things. And of course, the price there is you have to wade through shit to find the gold.
Yeah.
But it's a small price to pay when you compare it to like, okay, you give, let's say $70 to get the new Assassin's Creed because you don't want to spend the money on the high end version, but you're giving the money to Ubisoft who you can probably like in your gut, you know something's up there, but whatever, you'll swallow it because it's a big game. You want their whatever.
Yeah.
But if you give it to a little indie developer, there's very small chance he's a criminal, right?
They're one of the best games that I played on the Nintendo Switch to this day is an indie game called Golf Story, and it is fantastic. It is so good, and I like it's literally it's a JRPG, but it's a golf game, and instead of battling, you play rounds of golf against people.
Isn't there like what is it?
Isn't it
Persona? Isn't Persona like half like basketball? No, what is the other one?
No, I was gonna say Persona is
Not
a
Persona.
life sim that is
Right,
also
there-
a JRPG.
Yeah, I think there's maybe it's that same company, but I'm an idiot and could be conflating two things. But like there was a game that like was half RPG, half like school simulator, but the RPG of it
that's
was
Persona.
like a basketball.
Oh no, well,
Okay,
no,
but
it's
it was basketball related, is what I'm getting at.
Oh no, it's I don't know, but
I can't remember the name. It's not important.
But like, yeah, Golf Story is so it's like all the RPG groups that like I'm part of. They always talk about like what's the best RPGs to play on Switch. I'm like Golf Story. I'm like Golf Story 100% is like every other RPG that you're gonna play on the Switch is not exclusive to the Switch. Golf Story, as far as I know, it might be on Steam, but if you're looking for it on consoles, the only console it's on is Switch. It's like if you played Caddyshack in a game. It's literally that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of the game form of Caddyshack, and I'm like, I love it.
And you know that's an interesting concept that you bring up because my favorite philosophy is there are two types of people, and if you ask a person what type of video game they play, like if you ask me what's the game you most enjoyed over the last year, I can think of 2 or 3 independent video games that I've put hundreds of dollars worth of pulled hundreds of dollars worth of entertainment out of that were less than $10. And I've got video games that cost $70 that I haven't gotten a nickel out of.
Yeah, that happens more often than not.
And so, but that's the thing too, is the AAA developers would never risk, like, what if in a zany world, your Golf Story was like that concept, instead of being solely indie developed, like they got sold to a big developer and it became a huge thing.
It's like that would be it would
homogenized.
Yeah.
They would homogenize it and it would become like, they say, okay, great, thanks for your game. Because we've seen it happen. Like when indies get picked up, their next one, you know, the corners are smooth, like that's a little less personality. But it's the constant struggle of art versus commerce.
Yeah, the big companies are all about service games now, and the whole idea of service games just drives me crazy because I'm like, your game can't be a service. Like, there are only a handful of service games that I think that are okay, and like, it's a very small handful, and everything everybody
give me
tries
an example of what a service game is?
Probably one of the bigger ones on the market would be like Destiny or like
oh, okay,
Diablo,
Yeah.
or like the games where like they'll update it every few months, give you new stuff, and tell you to go. I mean, technically, like it's not
Pepper Grinder. The game.
Yeah, like even like World of Warcraft is technically a service game by definition. It's its own genre, but it's still a service game. So
yeah, but that's part of it. I think a service game, even if like let's say you bought one of these service games and put no money into it, like you just did it purely through grinding, like your time is not valuable. So they're stealing something from you. They're either going to take your money, which is stealing your time, or they're stealing your time, which also is potentially stealing your money. So, but that's the way that it's been set up now, is they offered more and more live services. Say, hey, good news. This game has so much value that if you subscribe to this game, we'll give you more later. And don't worry, if the servers are a ghost town in 6 months, we will totally fuck you over. You're welcome.
I think I'm hoping that the bigger corporations realize that there's only a finite amount of people out there. Like you can't just make every game a service game and expect people to stick around. You have to give them a reason to stick around, and even then,
they go back to the big one that literally slays all its opponents.
Like not to use World of Warcraft again, but World of Warcraft is a good reference. Every other MMO that has ever tried to compete with World of Warcraft has lost.
Mm-hmm.
There's only one other MMO that exists right now that even closely can compete.
Can I
with
guess?
it. Go ahead.
Is it? Oh God. If it competes, I'm going to say the Elder Scrolls Online world?
No, but the Elder Scrolls has a decent amount of people on it, but it doesn't compete like this game does.
Conan?
Nope.
Conan,
I think Conan is under 1 million players monthly.
I'm just guessing at like what I see.
Final
Keith
Fantasy
play
14.
That's an online game?
Yes, it is.
And so here's the thing. Here's my next question, PJ. If I, as a child, fell in love with the gameplay of an RPG, and now it has been so twisted, like, how much bullshit do you have to swallow to accept completely different game mechanics? And it'd be like, it would be as if it's so... I don't even like if you went to bed a caveman with a fire in your living room and woke up in the 40s with a TV and a radio and a stove, and you'd be like, what the fuck? Like, to go from like Final Fantasy, straight ahead classic gameplay to just be like, oh yeah, now it's kind of open world and we're just sort of easing you into something that makes us more money but gives you less enjoyment.
So I'll actually use Square Enix, Final Fantasy's parent company, as an example. Final Fantasy 15 is their newest installment. It came out a few years ago, but to be honest, it's garbage. It's like a 7 at best out of 10.
So a solid C is garbage.
It is an open world, but the world feels dead. So they failed at making an open world. And then they release a game called last year called Octopath Traveler, which
I've heard of that.
Which is they take the 3D sprite world and they take the 2D sprite world and give it a 3D aspect. Like it's a weird change on it. But I'm like, the gameplay in this game is fantastic, but the story just isn't quite there. And I'm like, if Square Enix gave up on going for like their whole thing is like, we have to push the barrier on graphics and all this thing, and then a lot of times they start to ignore the gameplay. With 15 it was evident because the gameplay was super repetitive and it was just boring after a while, whereas they this year they came out and they remade Final Fantasy 7, which is like near and dear to a lot of RPG players' hearts. And it was probably one of the best remakes I've ever played of a game, period. Because it's like they understood what an RPG player wants. It's an action game, but you can slow time down in the game to make your choices. So it's still turn-based in a sense, but it has a more like modern battle style, and the story, if anything, was just made better. So and they still kept like the good graphics. They made a lot of some like awesome boss fights and whatnot, but it was just a fun game. And I'm like, if Square Enix could just do this more often, they'd probably do better. But nowadays, all these RPGs, especially the bigger ones, they have an issue with they're just too focused on graphics. And I think that's a lot of the times they just want everything to look nice and pretty, and I'm like, it's not. You need gameplay. I'm like, you could literally give me more games with that look like Super Nintendo games, as long as they had good stories. I'd be fine. Can
you count? I'm sure you could count on one hand how many times that's already happened. Like, it happened. I feel like every generation that's the case is like these companies rise up. Gameplay just sort of takes a back seat to like the technical marvel of it all. And I realized that there's money in peripherals and stuff, and somebody has got to try out the VR, and the Kinect was a failure, PS Move was a failure, the Wii was a failure. Like, all of these things are just failing and failing and failing. And it's like, when you've got it perfectly good, like, we had a great thing. Controllers and consoles, they had that shit on lock. It was like, if you wanted to sit down and play a game without fucking around with a computer and having to learn things, nailed it every time. And slowly, they've made themselves so unwieldy and such a pain in the ass. It's like, why am I even here? Like, this is just an angry PC that heats up under my TV instead of in a different room.
Yeah, it's that they need to stop with that crap, honestly.
Yeah, it's just a revving of engines. Like every whatever.
They made a Half-Life game in with VR, and that game didn't. And people were like, "This game is a really good VR game," and it didn't do well in sales at all. So like that was the best VR game that they made, and it did shit. So like it just shows that there's just not an audience for it.
Yeah, we need to, like, as a species, we chase novelty, but at some point we have to look back at all of these broken and unused toys and all these unused elements and be like, oh yeah, we tried this already 14 fucking billion times.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's it. Like, everybody looks back and is nostalgic for the old Nintendo games because they were designed to be fun first, and then they were like, oh, we'll make a story and characters later.
Well, that's what I don't understand. So I don't know how a process is with getting a game made. Like, in my perfect world in my head, like, there should be different, like, teams of people. Like, okay, we have a story and characters is one team, and then it gets moved on to, like, them interacting or like whatever graphics and then technical shit. Like, why?
Right, but here's the thing. When more hands get into that pot, more minds need to be appeased.
I was going to say, there's like, if it's a big company, you're looking at like 70 plus core people on the project at all times. And then whatever other people they hire as contract work, because a lot of these companies hire contractors to come in to help with specific things. Mm-hmm. But you're also looking at like the person who's overseeing most of the things is the game designer. Or the team of designers, and they're kind of like looking at everything, but they're literally looking at everything. So they're trying to like make sure these people are doing that. So like they're loosely, their attention isn't fully on anything at any given point in time.
Oh,
look at it like this. So an indie developer like is a guy who is, he's gonna build a house. So he goes and gets the wood and he builds his house. AAA developers are the government. You go to them, you say, I'd like to build a house. And they move you through all these things. Every little department has to get their go ahead. Where, like, so the house that the guy made with no instruction and without the help of the government may fall down, but it may be the funnest house in the fucking world. However, the house you get from the government place will be, to the 9, and all the money in the world will have funded its development, but it'll be boring as fuck.
Well, that's what I don't understand. So if all these people, there's 70 plus people, doesn't anybody look through it and be like, these characters are really lacking in character development? Like,
no, because lacking in character development is not controversial and it's not insulting.
There may be people who bring it up, but it just they end up bringing it up to their higher ups, and their higher ups like, no, just keep continuing because they just want. It's gonna, if it's a big name game, like if it's an Assassin's Creed name, you slap the Assassin's Creed name on a game, it's selling regardless. So like they just want to get it out.
You cannot put anything in there that will offend any one of its lowest of the low mouth breathing purchasers. Yeah. So it has to be super streamlined. Like take for example Hotline Miami. It's a game about doing drugs and murdering people in graphically violent and outlandish ways. Mm-hmm. It there's racism and drug use and sex, and it's a blast. None of those things what I referred to earlier, I'm going to call those compelling elements. None of those things are in Assassin's Creed games. Like, you go to a place and do a fetch quest. You go to a place and sneak up on a guy. You can kill a guy, but there's not going to be a lot of blood, and there might be a long scene beforehand or afterwards, and it's going to be blah, 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 blah. So AAA has to make sure they don't offend anybody because they want to make $200 million. Mm-hmm. Like, Captain America and Hulk may be like angry at each other, but no one is going to drop the C word on each other and storm out only to have like a rocky relationship for a few years. Like, that's compelling characters. What we have in AAA is like, I'm a rough guy and you're a tough guy and those are the same almost, so let's fight. And then later when the big climax happens, they go, but they rhyme and they come together.
Yeah.
The game ends and you go, well, that was $60. However, I will still be playing Hotline Miami and slashing dudes up and down a hallway with a katana and watching their intestines spring out of them like party favors.
Yeah.
But you'd never see that in a AAA game, or if you do, it's like try-hardy. Can I call it that?
Yeah, I mean,
Mature.
I was gonna say one of the best selling games of all time now, because it's getting up there, is GTA 5.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because it breaks all of the normal conventions. Like, it lets you be a dick to people if you are a dick or want to be a dick virtually.
Yeah.
And that's all we ask for. Like in Assassin's Creed, if you're a dick, like, it fucks your game up. If in GTA you're a dick, you're expected to be, and the world acts appropriately, being like, hey, stop being a dick. It doesn't say, hey, stop being a dick, because this is the past and you can't do something that you wouldn't have done.
Yeah. I think that game is actually nearing 100 million copies sold.
Wow.
Oh, for sure. Like,
It's pretty close, if it isn't already there.
it's the internet on, a hard disk. It's basically like, here's a representation of a city where you can be a depraved fuck, or you can work alongside your fellow man. Go nuts. Yeah, of course. It appeals to like literally everybody, because that is the right kind of appeal.
It was in the top 10 selling, like top 10 most like highest selling games every month for like 6 years.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like Rockstar knows how to do what they do, because I feel like secretly Rockstar's the only one who on a whiteboard somewhere haven't accidentally erased like the list, and number one is make a fun fucking game.
Did
Yeah.
they make Red Dead?
Yeah.
They did. Yeah, they just, the thing is,
Rockstar
like,
nails it.
I'm sure they're working on another Grand Theft Auto right now, because it's Grand Theft Auto 5 has been out for a while. But the thing is, they're like, as times change, they're probably worried about like how crazy they can get in their games, because Rockstar has always pushed those boundaries, even from the like when Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, which at the time was like crazy.
That was insane.
It was crazy for its time when it came out. So like they always push the boundaries, and even in their most recent one, they had a character who was just completely off the fucking hinges the entire game, and like all he did was just do drugs and kill people like the whole game. And like you had to play as 3 characters, and sometimes you'd wake up as him and he'd be in the middle of a beach half naked, and you're like, how did he even get here? Like, what is happening right now?
You can only spend so much time on the edge, man, before that's just where you live and it's normal.
Yeah. Like to me, he was like one of the best. When the year that game came out, I was like, this guy is one of the best characters in a game I've seen in a long time, because he's just completely unhinged, and the guy who played him just did a fantastic job, because he's just crazy to the extreme, and I'm like, he's fun to play because of that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He's irreverent. Like, he's not focus grouped. Like, you can tell. Like, you can point at that person and go, he's a psychopath. Like, walk up to anyone and be like, what do you think Master Chief is like under the helmet? And he'd be like, strong chin? Nothing?
He's like
just
7
a voice.
feet tall, literally.
Yeah, he's a voice behind a bunch of armor. Like, characters are what sell games. Like, I keep going back to Enter the Gungeon and Broforce, because it's simple, repetitive gameplay, but it's polished, man. It doesn't. That's what's so interesting about it, is like, if you could take a simple concept and just polish it to a mere shine, people will forget that it's essentially just like a light maze for a rat. Like, you can throw, like, I'm looking up a bunch of simulators right now for what, I feel like I want to do a bunch of simulating of things. And every game I get into where it's like, oh, here, run your own zoo. And it starts out being like, oh, here's a monkey, here's a this, here's a that. Now, here's a very detailed Excel spreadsheet breakdown of the schedule of all your employees over the next month. Here's an income and outgoing of food byproducts and where all our waste management. Oh, I'm like, holy fuck, I just wanted to have a zoo with some monkeys in it. And like, I feel like
create an empire.
The harder I try to check out and relax, the more these games are like, here is more unnecessary. Like I want to get back into American Truck Driving Simulator.
Mm-hmm.
However, I feel like an idiot because that game is so deep and I can do nothing but float along the surface. Like destined to like a man in a glass bottom boat. I can look at the depths that people can take it. However, I can never go there or I will die. However, like I feel like in doing my research, like the bus simulator 18 seems like there's just enough pedantic bullshit to make it worthwhile, but not enough to make you be like, I didn't actually want to be a fucking bus driver. I just wanted to play a game and escape from my real life for just an hour. Like, holy fuck. Don't get me wrong. If that's your thing, I get it. And Keith, if you're listening in the future, you're one of these dudes, but they will get jobs. I say games. I mean jobs. I mean games. They get these games that are like jobs and vice versa, which is why I keep confusing them. Like these life sims where you're constantly grinding for materials or money or building or la 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 la.
It's a voluntary job.
Yes, it's a part-time job that you pay for.
Right.
When I escape, I want to be chopping dudes or shooting dudes or driving a bus or driving a truck or whatever. I want to do something that I like. At the end of it, I can say I burned calories for no reason. I don't want to look into a virtual world in a fake chest of ones and zeros and be like, there's a bunch of wood in there. Thanks to this guy. Like, what the fuck? If that's your thing and you want to build and train and whatever, yeah, great. Not my
that's
thing.
what I like about like Minecraft. When we just sit and play Minecraft, I just avoid
No
going to
strings
things that I know are
attached.
scary. But like, I just go and shear a whole bunch of sheep. And I'm fine with that. Or like go and, I don't know, kill a bunch of farm animals.
But Minecraft is one of those things too, where I feel guilty playing it because Minecraft and again, what was the game I was talking about? American Truck Simulator, and even the European one probably. Like, they are pools that don't seem very wide across. Like, they're your average swimming pool that you'd find in any backyard. However, there's so much content and so many patches and mods, and the depth is such that the bottom of the pool is constantly boiling because it's so close to the Earth's molten core. And it's
That's true.
because you can get into Minecraft and sail your little boat on the surface, making little dirt castles. Or you can be the dude who makes a working computer, or you could do a life-size reproduction of the Star Trek Enterprise
I made
D.
a massive, cathedral underneath a molten lava-filled mountain that had a roller coaster that went through it all.
Just give me something that doesn't expect a lot, and not only that, can't.
Yeah,
Give me
I
something-
loved it. Like, I just went, me and like a whole bunch of people had a server, and we just used to go on there and screw around. And then I like randomly would log on after like a month, and there'd be like people would just create giant pixel art things, and you just like go in and you'd see all these big pixel art things created all over the place. And I'm like, see, this is what I want. Like, this people are just
perfect.
coming in here do whatever they want to do.
And that's one of these things is like Minecraft is kind of like Mario Paint. It's basically a sandbox with tools, and they say, here's some shit, do whatever you want. We don't give a fuck. It's the same thing Mario Paint did. Here, if you want, like, there's art in here or whatever, you can hit gnats with your mouse. And that's the thing. I think Minecraft shows the beauty of human potential if you give them the raw tools. However, I'm one of those dudes who doesn't necessarily want to build, like, I don't want to write the novel that I will then later have to read. I would like to have somebody else give me a game. Don't get me wrong, I like fucking around in Minecraft, but 9 times out of 10, I would like a narrative or something that is way beyond what I could ever produce, aka Bus Simulator 18.
I like Catan. I like to play games like Catan because that kind of makes me forget about.
And it's a personal thing too,
Yeah.
because that's like a board game, so you're interacting with people.
Well, yeah, to a certain extent.
Yeah, I would like to interact with
My like
virtual
palate
people.
cleanser game it's an auto chess game.
I
which
saw
is
you
a
playing
new
that
genre.
earlier. What's up with that?
It's basically just a the best way to describe it is there's a few different companies that make them, but they're basically like you're randomly given units. There's an economy in the game, so like you get gold each turn. Depending on how much gold you have saved, you can gain interest. You have to like play to your unit strengths. Some units have like synergies with other units. So like having a bunch of units with the same synergy sometimes is more beneficial. Then there's also items that you can put on those units that make them even stronger. So like, and then there's positioning. So it's literally like a chessboard. It looks like a chessboard. And
I'm
then
gonna be legit with you, PJ. I fell off this train miles ago.
But yeah,
Miles.
it's just like it's like each match is like 30 minutes long, and you just like I do like my ranked matches in those games, and like I usually get pretty high ranked. In them, like I think one of them I was in like the top 4% or something out of like millions of people.
Yeah, here's something to think about, and if you're listening, think about this too, listener. Over the take stock of everything you played over the last year and be like, what are the games that like your mind keeps drifting back to? And I bet I'm not often right. Spoiler alert, that's a lie. So I would bet all my money on all the memories that you look back on and be like, yeah, that was fun, that was fun, that was fun. 9 times out of 10, those are from indie developed games. Agree, disagree, comments, questions? I'll take
I
anything.
Disagree.
Really?
A lot of my most fond gaming memories tend to come from MMORPGs that I used to play back in the day, and none of those were made by indies companies.
Well, I didn't say back in the day, ding-a-ling. I said right now in the last fucking year. I didn't say when you were 12. PJ, right now in the last fucking year, 2020, give me a memory of a game that you really enjoyed. Don't think about it, just give it to me.
I mean, I would say Hades.
What? So, proving my point.
I would say
proved.
Hades is still technically
Swish.
an indies company, so they fall
I'm
under
just
that
saying,
category.
like anything. It's hard to even say what's an indie company. Because indie can mean 500 people, or it can mean 3 dudes in a basement. Like, have you seen the documentary of Super Meat Boy? I'm sure you have.
Oh yeah, it's just 2 dudes. Technically,
Yes.
It was one dude who wrote the code and one dude who did the art.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like that,
And they both became
underdog
millionaires
story.
from that game.
Yeah, which is number 1 inspirational, but number 2 a kick in the dick, because literally that happens to 1 out of 1 billion people.
That, and they spent multiple years of their life doing that, and they were
they were wrecked.
They
Oh.
were like in shambles after the end of
I
those
can't
years.
believe they survived making that game. Like, if you watch that documentary, by the end you think, oh my god, like this ends in a murder-suicide, but then you remember, oh no, they made the game.
I'm actually gonna
that.
plug something if anyone ever likes to watch documentaries that are made for video games and like about the development, all different cycles from video games. There's a group called NoClip that makes great documentaries, and that's all they do. They're just a YouTube channel, and all they do is make documentaries. And they made a documentary, like they did one for Hades, the entire series. So they followed the whole development cycle of Hades, even through COVID, and like just that alone, like that was where I started watching it. But they did it for so many games over the past like 6-7 years.
That's nuts.
Yeah, that's literally. It was a guy who used to be a video game journalist at IGN, and then he left his job to become and do that, and he just does a Patreon, and that's how he does it.
Here's another thing that sucks is like there exist people like this, and like just think of the number of things that you will either never experience or get way too late or way longer than it took to get because they had no advertising budget or this, that, or the other. When you can look at the side of a bus, it'll be like Grand Theft Auto 5 and fuck you, and you're like, yeah, I'll buy it. Meanwhile, like unless a game is so like Hades is literally the only thing I can point to in the last like decade where maybe Super Meat Boy or like Fez or there's some things here or there that sort of ripple the surface that even breaks the waves for even us normal plebs not in deep with the video game industry.
Mm-hmm.
But those are 1 in a billion.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I open up Steam right now and look at what's just been released. I guarantee I can tell you because I've been looking a lot recently. There's like 8 American Truck Drive expansions, which only furthers my dilemma. Oh boy. If I had $35 to drop, you better believe I would be streaming 8-10 hours of me driving a bus driving a bus, listening to Dave Matthews, eating shrimp out of a bag.
Nice.
Worst. I would be one of those bus drivers who gains a lot of weight, but all in the gunt area. And I would wear those like orthopedic Velcro shoes with socks that are so the shoes would be black, socks white. Used to be white, now
Tube
mostly
socks.
yellow. No, like the short ankle socks, but like the ones that go over the ankle, but
They're like ribbed.
That ridiculously stupid version of socks that some people have.
Yeah, they're like work boot. They go up to like a work boot.
And I'll have like nice stretchy pants that look like Dockers and my professional bus driver shirt.
And like a windbreaker jacket.
Yeah, and I'll adopt a not a Jamaican accent, but like a Louisiana accent. I was like, get on the bus, and I'll be eating shrimp and shit.
I hope you can customize your person if you play that game.
We can only hope. That's the thing. You can only do so much by watching the same video over and over again and learning very little else.
Yeah.
Because, your kid, he loves watching buses and trucks drive, which is a great coincidence because that's what I want to play.
He does.
Anywho, PJ, so what is going to be coming down the pipe with PlayNoSave? What's happening? Are you doing anything new? Where's the podcast at?
I'm just going to be doing quick little snippet thing. I think recording things on like impressions on games. I might just do like vocal reviews, or I might just drag my co-host in there to just ask me like questions so that I can talk about the game essentially. This way, if people don't want to read something, they can at least listen to it.
Yeah.
But like you'll see, I'm going to do a thing about, I'm going to do a review for Cyberpunk. I'm going to do a review for Assassin's Creed. I have my notes written down. I just got to write it. And then I want to do a thing for the upcoming end of year to talk about like what I thought was great this year that came out and like where I thought issues were with some of the games that came out. The good thing is that me and my co-host have like different views on certain games. So like it's a good contrast. So we're going to write an article together as well so that we can like kind of bounce off of each other to give like different opinions on things. Cause like, yeah, there's like certain genres that me and him like don't always come eye to eye on. So
yeah, because that's what people are looking for. You want conflict. That's why all these boilerplates are so boring. You want conflict. Could you imagine if like everything I said just went over gangbusters with Adam and Andy? Like if they were just like, yep, that was funny. Like they didn't nitpick every little fucking thing I said. We wouldn't have a show.
Yeah.
You need conflict. And especially with video games, because that's one of those things where it's kind of like music or movies where when you meet someone, I met, just as a touchstone, I met someone who was like, there was music playing somewhere and they were like, oh, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know. And they said, I do not like rock and roll music. Like it was the fucking 50s. This was last month this happened to me. I was like, what? She said, yeah, I don't like rock and roll. Never took to it. I'm like, that is possibly the most stupid sweeping statement I've ever heard. Like, rock and roll, just don't care for it as a genre. Are you, what? So that's the thing. Video games, music, movies, there's something relatable in all of it. So don't be that person who's like, nope, don't like XYZ. I'll even like play some puzzle games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I delve into quite a bit of different things.
So, we'll have to, I keep thinking about, we're going to have to do like a project together or something. Off air, we'll let people in behind the curtain. I had said if I had thought ahead, we could have reviewed a tiny little game or some indie project or something. That would be fun.
Yeah, we can easily do something like that.
So maybe look forward to that. Maybe we'll do like a 2-parter. We could do like something that's like a multiplayer, do like a little live stream, and then do like a
brunch time.
That would be. We could do something like that. I think that we should definitely do that. Pick a game that we can like review together, but then also do a stream and maybe do like a pre-recorded thing, release that, and then stream as well.
I'm gonna try and hold you to this because I know that this show is nothing but broken promises.
No, we could definitely do something like that.
Yeah.
We can make that work.
It's not for lack of trying, listener. I do try. Yeah,
I'm
so
pretty
we'll do
easy
that.
to get on the show. So
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do a video game breakdown. Well, that's the one thing I don't think I've dissected yet. We've done tons of movies. We've done TV shows.
Done books.
We've done books. We've done products. I don't think I've dissected a video game.
No, because I think what usually happens is you talk about a video game with
Adam and Andy pout, suck their thumbs, and say my childhood wasn't manufactured in Japan by a bunch of people in a factory.
Yeah.
And I have to grant them that point. Mine was had by children here in America. It wasn't programmed by a Japanese man wearing a tie going.
and then David's blood boils for 3 days
And then
afterwards.
they're gonna fucking yeah. Sorry, my childhood wasn't in an NES cartridge. Mario wasn't my fucking dad. But I'm not bitter, really.
not at all.
So yeah, we'll think of a game to dissect, and we'll do that on an upcoming episode. So PJ, here's my only stipulation: keep it under $5 because.
Yeah, we could do that. That's fine.
Kids are expensive.
Kids are expensive. Not only that, but like fucking, if you get like every time you get into double digits, that's like hours and hours of content.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Like
Yeah, we'll make it work.
I've got this walking simulators and stuff, and whatever. We'll talk about it later. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, the usual ways are available. Facebook and everything. PlayNoSave.com is PJ's website. Pretty slick looking still, very clean. I like it. Doesn't like you haven't fucked it up by being like this needs a splash of color. I say keep it classic.
Yeah, it doesn't need anything too crazy.
No, I keep having flashbacks of like my first website with the GeoCities animated GIF flame.
Oh God,
torches and-
GeoCities! That you just
the
showed
visit-
your age with GeoCities.
Oh my! I'm an old man. It was an actual city and it geoed. Anyway, yeah. So, what else? I think that's it. Like the stuff I should plug, I never do. So why break the routine? PJ, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having
It's
me.
always a pleasure. Yeah, I guess that's it. I still, God damn it, rebooted fucking 4 months ago. You'd think by now, oh, sure. Yeah, I think first few episodes, it's going to be a little rocky, obviously. You want to shake things up. You want to switch up the outro. 4 months in, still haven't landed on a single thing. Nay, not even landed or come near. It feels like the end of each show is like we're riding in a Delta flight from here to Santa Fe, and the end comes and the stewardess, flight attendant, not sexist, kicks open the door with his or her shoe, and we just have to jump out and hope for the best. So I apologize, listener.
You can just do until next time.
Until next time, my name's Dave,
I'm Krista.
and he's Poop J. So remember, kids, if you're going to flip a coin, flip it toward the indie developer because they are probably not big enough to exploit anybody yet. See you next week.
Fistful of Podcasts Radio.